Welcome to the Dump Truck Toolbox. I'm Alan, I'm not hauling today, and we're talking manual transmissions. Thanks to Iron Sheepdog, they keep the dump trucks in our region hauling. So in an earlier video, I talked about my commercial driver's license and learned a key thing. It's better, first of all, not to put the license in front of your face, and then it's better to obscure confidential information on the license rather than relying on YouTube to do it for you. Otherwise, you get strange looking images like this. So my commercial driver's license has two restrictions on it. The first is corrective lenses needed when operating a commercial motor vehicle, and that's no problem for me. I like my glasses. I use my glasses all the time, and it really does help me see out the road better. I also use prescription sunglasses. They help me with glare during the day, and if I use them during the day, I seem to have better night vision that evening as well. The other restriction on my license is the one I want to talk about today, and that is automatic transmissions only while operating a commercial motor vehicle. So what's up with that? So at the age of 15, I took driver's ed in a 4-speed Volkswagen Beetle. My family has owned manual transmission civilian vehicles, 4-wheel vehicles, my whole driving life. As you may know, if you've seen some of the other videos, I drove for a transit company in college, got my chauffeur's license, and that was a license to drive, as far as I could tell, any commercial vehicle. And so even though I learned to drive on an automatic transmission transit bus, one summer I got a job driving for a moving company, and I drove a straight truck with a 10-speed, and my favorite, I drove a semi tractor trailer with a 10-speed, five gears in the pattern, and a 2-speed transfer case with the little button you pulled up on the shifter. When I first got into the moving trucks, I'll admit it, I ground a few gears, I stalled once or twice, but I got the hang of it pretty quickly. By the end of the summer, I was cruising the interstates of America, driving a tractor trailer, double clutching, floating gears, and I thought I was a real trucker. And that's an example of the sophomore curse, where you learn a little bit and then you get overconfident. Unfortunately, I didn't have any incidents or major issues with driving a manual transmission. But I maybe thought I knew more than I actually knew. So I kept that chauffeur's license for about a dozen years, and then finally gave it up, thinking I'll never drive a commercial vehicle again. Well, life has its twists and turns. And so when I went back to drive, a local transit company hired me. They put me through training and assisted me with passing the skills test. When I had completed the skills test and I was filling out the form for the DMV to get my full license, it had been filled out largely by my instructor, and I just had to put in some personal information and sign it. Well, there was a box that was checked saying restricted to automatic transmission only. So I said to my instructor, I said, well, you shouldn't check that for me. I'm gonna go ahead and change that. He said, no, keep it where it is. And I explained to him, I've driven commercial vehicles with manual transmissions, and I know how to drive them. And he said, nope, don't change it. Now, it could be I was trained in the automatic transmission, that's why I took the test in, et cetera, so maybe that's why. But the suspicious side of me wonders, was it so I would end up with a license that was somewhat less useful to certain employers who have a vehicle with a manual transmission, in order to maybe increase the odds that I would stick with the company that trained me. So now I find myself with that restriction, and talked to I talked to my boss at the hauling company, and I said, would it be of value to you for me to remove that restriction? And we talked some. Our company has 4 dump trucks. One of them has a manual, not the one I'm slated to drive. But after we talked for a bit, he said, yeah, I think we would like you to remove that restriction. And so then I looked into it, and I went to the fount of all wisdom about licenses, the DMV, and they said, well, you need to take 120 hours of classroom training and then some amount of on-the-road training in order to change that restriction. I'm like, wow, that seems over the top. I went back home, thought about it a little more, and then decided that person may have been wrong. So I went back to the DMV again, talked to another person behind the counter who was more helpful, but also a bit more informed. And she came up with a slightly different plan that still seemed a little overboard. So I went back home again, did some more research on the DMV site, and really felt like I had a good understanding of what I needed to do. So I went back a third time, and I got a very, very helpful DMV person. And the thing I appreciated about her was she knew a fair amount, but she also knew what she didn't know. And so early on, she went to get her supervisor, branch manager, or whoever it was. And that person came over, and I was a fairly unique case. So they did research into their regulations and determined that no, I didn't need classroom training. I didn't need to take a written test. What I needed, though, was to get a learner's permit. Okay, well, if I have both of these in my wallet, I can drive a dump truck with a manual transmission. If I'm not driving a manual transmission, my regular CDL still holds. And so I talked with my boss, and the plan is to have me drive with an experienced driver on her manual transmission triaxle truck. And once I'm comfortable, we'll try to find a time that's mutually convenient where we'll take that truck to the DMV testing site for commercial vehicles, and I'll go through all the steps. I assume I have to do a pre-trip and some backing and then on the road. And hopefully that will be sufficient to remove the restriction on my CDL. If that plan doesn't work, then I'll go back to ground zero. I'll look at some commercial driving schools and see what would be involved in me doing this on my own time and my own dime. Your thoughts. Is it worth it to remove this restriction? Are manual transmissions still in frequent use among dump trucks, among haulers? Is it a plus, and is it worth the time and energy and possibly the money to remove that restriction? And so please add your comments. I'd really like to hear your opinions on this. As always, if this video was useful, if you enjoyed it, please click like. Subscribe to our channel. That helps other people find the Dump Truck Toolbox, and that adds more to the conversation. So until next time, be safe out there, and I'll see you soon on the Dump Truck Toolbox.